What happens when your bulk goes too far? Now, I've bulked from a lean position like this to nearly 250 pounds like this, and I learned a lot from it. So today I'm going to discuss how to approach a fat loss phase after a long bulk to ensure you don't lose muscle. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Parvella from ProPhysique.com. In today's video, I want to talk about an aspect about fat loss and about muscle building that I think it's very common amongst us. And the idea is spending a long time in a bulking phase, and then you just want to switch gears, right? Now, the purpose of a bulking phase, if you're not familiar, is to put on as much muscle as possible. Now, for most people, the term bulk implies two things. One, you go hard in the gym. Two, you go hard with the food. And in my experience, what typically happens is you end up putting far more fat on than you put muscle on. So I got a great question. I want to answer this question right here. I'm currently bulking and about to start my cut, and I don't want to lose muscle when losing fat. I did a full year bulk, went from 150 pounds to 220 pounds on a 5'10" frame. I lift heavy during this period with none of the cardio. What is the best way to start a cut? Well, good news is that you are probably going to respond very well to a cut. I mean, and in my experience, at 5'10", 220 pounds, I mean, you put on 70 pounds in a year. I mean, you're putting on 6-7 pounds a month. Even if you are a complete new lifter, I think the most you can expect to add in that amount of time would be about probably 15 pounds of muscle. So you could have stayed at relatively the same body composition, maybe ended up at 185. That likely means that you put on maybe 35 pounds of body fat. Nothing wrong with that, especially if that's your goal and you wanted to experience it. Lord knows I did. However, I don't generally suggest people gain upwards of 50 pounds in a single year. Now, you are a young guy training hard, and it probably served you well. So I want to talk a little bit about expectations when it comes to fat loss and how we can ensure that you don't lose any muscle. And I think the most difficult part for most of us to understand is that when the scale goes down, you are going to lose some strength, but that is not the same thing as muscle loss, okay? One thing I notice when I get much heavier is that my strength increases exponentially. In fact, my best bench of my life was 400 pounds, and I was also benching 315 on the incline for 5 reps. I was doing 315 on the flat for more than 10 reps. And these are good, clean pause reps. You know, these aren't bouncing. And what I found was that when my weight was between 240 and 250 pounds, I just had more ability to handle that kind of weight. Now, whether it's the fat that resides in our joints and our muscles improves our leverages, but as my weight would drop down from 240 to 250 down to 200, I noticed that my bench press would significantly decrease to a degree where, man, I felt like I lost muscle. And yet I looked way more muscular at a lower body fat. So, I basically came to this conclusion that although I was losing body fat and I was losing a little bit of actual strength in the gym, I was not losing muscle. And so just want you to prepare you for that. You might actually lose a little bit of strength just because of the leverages. Research shows, and I'll put an article here for you guys to see, that even in obese populations, people that lose extreme amount of weight, muscle is very resilient. The muscle that you put on your body, it's very resilient. If you keep up with a decent protein intake, and for those that are looking for a number, I always say, set your protein, your minimal number, at your goal weight, right? So let's say you're like this gentleman here, maybe 220 pounds, and you're saying, okay, I want to get down to 190, lose 30 pounds. Set your protein at 190 grams per day. That is going to be plenty to prevent any risk of muscle loss. The other thing I would say is don't change your training. You change your training according to kind of your ability and your strength and your performance, but if you continue to do resistance training in a manner that you were doing it before, you're not going to lose any muscle. Muscle, like I said, is very, very resilient throughout this process. One thing that as a coach of competitive bodybuilders that I do to really try to ensure we're not losing muscle is discussing the rate of fat loss, okay? A lot of people want to lose fat and they want to lose it quickly. In fact, I have a free calculator. If you go to prophysique.com/calculator and you plug in all your information, there's actually an option on there to be very aggressive with fat loss. And this is a caloric deficit that's pretty extreme. The risk you can run into with rapid fat loss, and if anyone here is doing one meal a day or fasting or, a very low calorie diet, which I believe medically is defined by anything under 800 calories, that's where you can run into some risk for muscle loss through decreasing your performance in the gym because your calories are so low, because you're losing body fat so quickly. So what is a safe bet for weight loss per week? The safest number is about 1% of your body weight. So you, my friend, at 220, you can safely lose probably between 2 and 2.5 pounds per week in the beginning stages and not risk muscle loss. Any more than that, and research shows that you may risk a reduction in your performance. The studies were done in athletes. They noticed a decrease in vertical leap and things like that. So if your performance decreases, there's a risk that you are gonna lose some muscle. But I would even argue that you're still likely to keep that muscle, even if you're in a rapid fat loss phase, if two things are true. Your protein goals are being hit and you're continuing to do your resistance training. The other thing that I found interesting was you said you're doing no cardio. And this was something that when I was younger, I thought cardio was a bad word. I think I believed far too much what the magazine said. But a lot of the research in cardio and the interference effect, which refers to when you do cardio, it interferes with your ability to add muscle. I think that refers to a cardio style called moderate intensity, which I think most of us would consider going for a jog, right? Endurance training. Cardiovascular exercise is any activity that raises your heart rate. It's a rhythmic activity. So walking is such a low intense form of cardio that when I added that, I was amazed at how much I was able to handle, how much I could do, even on an incline and a speed, and have zero negative impacts to both my hunger, my performance in the gym, but have a seriously positive impact on things like inflammation, digestion, and most of all, body composition. I was also able to never have to diet again because I was able to lose body fat in a manner that allowed me to keep it off, because for me, it's simply now a job of just adjusting my cardio and calories based on what I want. I no longer have these large swings. Now, granted, I'm 49 years old. I'm a lifetime natural bodybuilder, so I'm not looking to bulk, right? So I would never tell someone who's young and in their, teens or 20s that it's a bad idea to bulk. Why? Because I did it. And who knows? There may have been some benefits at that time, right? I think for myself, I wasn't being so perfect with my nutrition. So over consuming my calories probably helped me make more progress in the gym because I was certainly in a caloric surplus, which is what you need when you're training hard to recover and come back and be better down the road. What I struggled with early on was finding that balance between where I liked how I looked and I liked how strong I was and how much muscle I had. That's what took me probably the better part of 15, 20 years to figure out. That's where bodybuilding came in, learning things like, how to manage my calories, how to manage my cardio, along with my training to elicit that response. So I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that if you just continue training the way you are, you keep your protein in a good spot. I would add in, 3 to 5 cardio sessions a week, some incline walking or elliptical where you're kind of just breaking a light sweat. I would start to control those calories, creating a deficit that allows you to kind of get going and losing about 2.5, 3 pounds per week to start and really seeing that change happen. And you're not going to risk losing any of the muscle that you put on. In fact, what'll happen is when you get under 200 pounds, when you get under 190, when you get close to that 180 mark at 5'10", that's when you're going to start to look much more muscular than you do at 220. Now with a shirt on, a nice tight shirt at 220, you probably look good, but you probably got a little extra chin, you probably got a little extra pudge on your lower back and lower abdomen. And those are the things that I didn't enjoy when I was 250 pounds. I felt great in the gym. I felt great in my 2XL shirts. I felt great pushing that bar off. I felt great deadlifting, over 500 pounds, but I didn't feel great going to the beach. I didn't feel great taking my shirt off. Now I feel great taking my shirt off anywhere I go. And I've got to enjoy this process. But I've run through these experiences, and I think it's important that we all experience things as we want. So hopefully this addresses your question. If you guys have any other questions, please send them. As a coach, I've got a lot of experience and I just want to help you guys reach your goals and understand things. Don't forget the calculator, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.